Good morning and welcome to Rising. Our journey through the landscape of American news and politics continues into Wednesday in this great nation.
You sound like you're trekking through the wilderness there, Robby.
It feels like trekking through the wilderness, our journeys to this office. You're mostly an on-foot guy, so you're plagued by this.
I am. I'm not happy about the state of the sidewalks in D.C. We need bigger government, Robby. That's what we need. More activist government.
We need bigger pickaxes is what we need. I see people with their little shovels trying to... That's not going to do anything.
No, we're not really good. We need more progress than that. We need quicker and faster progress.
Yes.
Coming up on Rising, the U.S. Attorney for, as it happens, the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, is getting criticised for a comment she made threatening jail time for people who carry guns in the nation's capital.
Yes, plus political strategist James Carville, one of our favorites, he reveals who he thinks has the best shot at winning the 2028 Democratic presidential nomination.
And Democrats held a forum on President Trump's immigration enforcement efforts after at least 2 fatal shootings. I'll be exploring that more in my notes. But first of all, Robby, what is in your radar?
Well, Europe's war on American tech companies is heating up. French authorities raided the headquarters of X in that country and have summoned Elon Musk and former X CEO Linda Yaccarino to speak with the police. This is a serious escalation of European governments' efforts to compel Musk and the leaders of other social media companies to fall in line and to handle speech and tech the way it's handled in Europe, namely very little formal protection for free expression and consequently very little innovation in the tech sector. Pavel Durov, founder of Telegram, slammed France on X, saying France is the only country in the world that is criminally persecuting all the social networks that give people some degree of freedom. Telegram, X, TikTok. Don't be mistaken, this is not a free country. Durov knows from personal experience he was previously detained in France due to content that appeared on Telegram. It's concerning. Now, the charges against X, according to the New York Times, are that X's AI system, Grok, is not taking sufficient steps to combat misinformation, to combat racism, and also that it's allowing for the generation of child sexual abuse images. Now, that last accusation is extremely serious, of course, and it's perfectly good for proper for law enforcement to ensure that social media giants are taking reasonable steps to suppress such content and, more importantly, to hold to account the people who create such content. And that's key because, look, make no mistake, it is people, it's human beings who are ultimately responsible, not Grok itself, not Elon Musk, but the individuals who issue the commands to the AI to make such images. Grok is just a tool. If you take an inappropriate picture of an underage person, you are the guilty party, not the camera you use, not the person that invented the camera. If you say something defamatory about someone, or if you make violent threats over the phone, let's say, the criminal is you. It's not the phone company. This is obvious in so many other contexts, but for some reason, AI is making it so that many otherwise reasonable people sound foolish. Artificial intelligence is a glorified search engine. It's not alive. It's not thinking for itself. It's not making decisions. It is responding to the inputs you give it. Certainly, we need to impose guardrails to stop it from generating images that violate the law. I don't think anyone is against that. But we also need to stop ascribing motivations to the AI itself when it has none. Moreover, we should be sensitive of the fact that what governments all over the world really want to do is come up with excuses to harm innovation and regulate speech. Because it isn't just France. Here, for instance, was the president of Spain at the World Government Summit in Dubai this week.
This means that CEOs of these techno platforms will face criminal liability for failing to remove illegal or hateful content. And for that, we governments need to stop turning a blind eye to the toxic content shared under their watch. Second, we will turn algorithmic manipulation and amplification of illegal content into a new criminal offense. Disinformation doesn't appear by itself. It is created, promoted, and spread by certain actors. We will go after them as well as after the platforms whose algorithms amplify the disinformation for profit.
Misinformation, hate speech. In other words, speech the government thinks is misinformation, that the government thinks is hateful. That could be speech that is critical of illegal immigration, or that's critical of China's role in causing the COVID pandemic, or that opposes Western foreign policy in the Middle East. Spain also plans, by the way, to ban access to social media for everyone under the age of 16. Think about that. The government wants to control very directly the access your children have to information, what platforms they can use, what websites they can access. How can we set ourselves up to have an informed society of educated and well-socialized young people, ready to choose our leaders, if we don't trust young people to use social media until they're 16? It's frankly crazy to me. By the way, there's no evidence whatsoever that young people are extra susceptible to false or hateful information on social media, and if anything, it's the opposite, i.e., if you are super worried about people encountering and failing for lies on social media, you would probably prohibit the elderly from using it, not young people. Now, that idea would be ridiculous, of course, because it is not and should not be the government's job to decide what information you are allowed to see. That's true in America, and if Europe wants America to keep coming to their rescue, then it should be true in their countries as well. No, Niall loves my digs at Europe.
A little bit of a jab in at the end. So, in all our conversations, I feel like this is one of our biggest and most persistent divisions. And in relation to, first of all, the specific case about XAI and Grok and all of that, the issue under consideration primarily is the propensity of people to use Grok in a way that they were not able to use other comparable services to undress people, and including minors in some instances. Now,
illegal and should be.
Right.
Yes.
Now, the issue there is why, from accounts that I have read of this, Grok, while that was able to occur, soared up the popularity charts in terms of apps in a way that other comparable services did not. Those other comparable services had apparently had the foresight to, in some coding fashion, stop what you could do on Grok from occurring when you used their services. That seems a completely reasonable thing for them to do. The failure to do it seems a serious failure on Grok's part, and therefore I think that it is perfectly valid for it to be investigated.
I think the enforcement should be on the people who use it or misuse it in that way. I mean, this is a question, by the way, in the American context, the rules are different in Europe, that we will have to answer to some degree probably with new regulation, because under our existing tech law, it is not clear who bears responsibility for AI-generated content. I think the argument should be, again, that it's the user, because we treat speech on social media as not the social media platform's responsibility, but broadly the responsibility of the person who creates it. You can't sue Twitter for Niall's defamatory comments. You have to sue Niall. So I think it should work that way, but it's not clear in the law, so we have to change it. I wonder what you think, though, about this. You don't see any concerns here about them just wanting to stop young people, for instance, from consuming content that they politically think is, like, to speak to the war on Gaza or something like that, very popular subject on TikTok. U.S. wanted to get TikTok out of American shores. They're going to ban social media access for everyone under 16. I mean, it seems crazy to me to think that 15-year-olds who are going to be voting for president or prime minister or whatever in 3 years shouldn't have basically unfiltered access, or at least access maybe filtered by what their parents think, but filtered by what the government thinks. It's crazy to me.
When it comes to things like TikTok or X, for that matter, my concern is more about the actual proprietors of those companies leaning on things or putting a thumb on the scales in some way. I would say, as far as the bans on young people using social media is concerned, Australia is one of the big examples of that. Public support in Australia for that ban was enormous. Like, polls were measuring the pro-ban sentiment at like 75-80%. I think that speaks to a fear that, in fact, far from socializing people, as I think your argument is, that there was a fear that it was in fact warping adolescent and pre-adolescent people's sense of the world and themselves and their own body image and all of that.
Well, maybe I'm out on a limb by myself. I just think we're going to come to regret this knee-jerk anti-tech fervor that is taking hold.
Nothing wrong with being out on a limb by yourself. Happens to me quite often. DC Attorney Janine Pirro sparked backlash from gun advocates after suggesting that anyone carrying a gun in DC would go to jail. We'll be right back to talk about that.